we're going to kind of go down memory lane. U.M.M.A was founded on May 11th, 1974, incorporated state of Missouri, August 28th, 1974. And this is the 47th anniversary. As we go down memory lane, these are some people that might not be cognizant of. Earl, Collins, George Hill, and Jordan, of course, John Franklin. We got Denise Jordan. We got Miriam Jordan. We got Lucille Blooper. We got Dorothy Williams. We got Bill Poindexter. We got Andrea Jolly. We have a lot of people in line here, but we also have cannot get all the names. So what we'll do, we'll just move on to our first guest, which should be Mr. Michael Anthony, and joining him is Miss Linda Bozeman. I'm sorry, Linda Gilbert. So, Michael, are you there? Okay. Linda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I don't know what happened to Mike. We talked to him, so why don't you go ahead and proceed? We're talking about the 1923 Ketcher incident.
All right. In 1923, there was a young woman who was alone in her house who was murdered. And two black men and a black teenage boy were accused of this murder. And she was my great-granddad, and I've never believed that they were the ones who killed her. So I've been working for the last 20 years to find what information I can to clarify what happened that day. What compounded it and made it so much worse was that all of the people who were black in that neighborhood were run out of their houses, and there was no reason for that. They were totally innocent of this, but they lost their property, and I'd like to see that somehow rectified, if possible.
Let me piggyback off of that. The land in Ketcher, Arkansas, which is located 4 miles from Van Buren, Arkansas, and 28 from Fort Smith, Arkansas, were the Richardson, the Codds, and the Ferguson owned property there. And the land was stolen. That includes the mineral rights. And we now have a candidate for a PhD working on that. And we just want everybody to join us. I know Ms. Janice Hamlin can play a pertinent role in this, because we need to get in contact with an organization who wants to put up a memorial in the name of Ketcher, Arkansas.
This is Scott Owen.
So what we'll do, let's switch to Ms.
Yes.
Hamlin, and you can add a great deal to this, Janice. Why don't you?
Well, I think Linda did a good job.
I'm afraid I'm in the middle of programming a show right now. I have absolutely no time. Thank you.
To this was strong. For instance, a lot of people didn't want to talk about this. I don't know if they didn't want to talk about us because they didn't want us to go in life being bitter about what happened, but we went generations of people not talking about this incident. And then when it did come out, and you saw all the injustice that took place, here's four people's lives that were killed in a town where they were very prosperous people. Foreman was basically what they were doing, but they were very prosperous people living in Ketcher, Arkansas, and their entire life was taken away from them. And just like my grandfather, Ernest Richardson, who was one of the people that was kind of like the leader, he was the part of the Richardson, the 13 that resisted, that the governor had to come and have them
basically, he sent people there to move them out of the land instead of letting them stay on their land. The governor at that time, sent people there trying to say there was a race riot and they were going to try to kill him. But my grandfather always said something to us, and I'll never forget it. He said, as many as people who may hate you that are white, there are as many more that are white that's going to help you. So he always said that, and he had help. He had help from families in Ketcher that would come to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and help these people that lost their land. I believe the man that used to help them was a pharmacist, and he used to, help them get businesses, work from other people in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And it's really strange because at that time, and you have to think back at that time, my family, I hit the Ferguson Cogs and Richardson side. The ones, it's really funny how it ended up. The ones that were educated, and some of them, the Cogs, were educated even as slaves. Those were the group of people that they educated. And they ended up doing wonderful things in Little Rock and in Milwaukee. All of them went into public service, either as a doctor or in political science. We had the ones that could pass. They went to California and they just passed as non-blacks, even though we're from the same family. And the ones who could not pass, they ended up going to Fort Smith and Kansas City. So you had, and this is not only unique for my family. I have friends who I went to high school with, whose family also were from Ketcher, who probably related to me as a distant cousin. It was split like that. But the thing that I think that kind of, that was from being an African American person, was that they didn't talk about this. As an adult, we start learning that, hey, we had land with minimal rights. How come we're not getting any money for that? And this is how this story came out. And to be truthful, it was the work of a lady working on her master's in 2009, 2010, who brought it to the young generation family about what was going on in Ketcher. And we start looking into it. I start going through my mother's paperwork. I start asking all the ones who were left, what happened? How did you cross that river? Was it the river you swam across? Just the whole incident with the whole thing with family members having to walk or get in a wagon and only taking a few amount of stuff with them to get out of that town by the end of the night. And then the churches that were in Fort Smith, Arkansas, that helped them. Van Buren, the churches, when they found out this was happening, people were helping them to get settled in this area. And they did help them by helping them get jobs. So, in one sense, it's sad, but I think the saddest thing is something needs to be done about it, because for my relatives who still live in that area, they don't go to Ketcher. It's just like everybody knows not to go to Ketcher. So I drove by there just to see what it looks like, and I know 10 years before I did, and I went like in 2016, I think, 18, people had gone on a bus and went down there, and it's like that everybody in that town still know the history about this. And we have people who were buried on that land, that were slaves on that land, they have history on that land, and something needs to be done to say, hey, this incident happened, it's not unique, happened in Tulsa, happened in several cities in Arkansas. But we need to recognize this. Not that we're trying to bring back how segregated it was, but also by doing this memorial, we'll recognize the other people who helped.
Well, what preceded that, on the land, they went and disrupted the cemetery, and they removed the remains there, and I would have guessed to say they threw it in the Arkansas River. They want to completely destroy Ketcher. And politically, they've been able to control not only the oil, but the natural gas. And it's still there. I don't know which family, which politician control this, but they control the oil and the natural gas right.
And the thing that was so sad about it is they said, okay, here you are having a gun against your head. The governor made it okay for them to come and kill people who were resisting, who happy with law-abiding citizens, who would just, work hard to get everything they got, and they were asked to, walk away from all that. And then they go and tell us, like, oh, they didn't want it, they decided that, they gave it to the church. A church that no one can go to because of the location of where it was. It didn't make any sense. And so that's why I'm coming back to, and just the whole thing afterwards, to know that the governor, it went all the way up to the governor that was involved with this, and arresting 13 men, saying they're exciting a race riot, and they know that they did. It was, and that's how they got off. Let's be real, this is the South back in the 20s. There's no other way they got out except there were good people who knew that what was going on was incorrect. And that's how they got out. And the thing that I think also that concerns me is my story, and then you can collaborate with my story was that your aunt who passed away, her husband was kind of put up to do this, to blame him based on the mineral rights. There were people around there trying to get people to sign over those mineral rights during that same time. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, her husband at that time had left, and I suspect that he's the one who killed her and took off. So I don't think he was the one that was promoting that. But yes, I agree with you that her death was used to take the rights away from your families.
Right.
And someone saw this happen, saw that they were blaming the blacks, and decided, okay, this is our opportunity. Let's get that land.
Right. And
go ahead.
But like I said, I don't remember that much about my grandfather, because but I do remember him telling us that there were people helping him, and it wasn't people of color as well as people who were not of color. They were helping him. And even in Oklahoma, there's some Indian reservation that's close to Arkansas. Some of the people went to the Indian reservation. So everyone around there knew that this was unjust. They knew that those men did not have anything to do with that. The supervisor even testified, well, two of the men worked for somebody, they even testified that they were not there. But, when people get angry and you get in that mob mentality, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. You're just going to do it. And I'm just, sometimes I'm curious, because this was during a time that this was happening all over in Arkansas and in Oklahoma, and in Georgia. It was happening a lot of places in the South of a way of taking the land away. But I do think that something needs to be done in recognition of it. Not that we're trying to remember the sad thing, but you have an aunt that was, that they put all this on her, but she, and I have family members. We just want to correct what was wrong.
Yes.
That's what we're trying to do.
I totally agree with that. I think that's exactly what we're trying to do. And not only that, these companies that made all of this money off of that gas, they need to give reparations to the families they took it from. And I don't mean, just handing them money, but putting it perhaps in a foundation.
Or a scholarship foundation.
Exactly.
One of the things that, I don't think, you get reparation, you go down here, so many of us, just, it really doesn't, it won't make a stand. But if we had some type of, these gas companies were to offer scholarships, that benefits everyone. Scholarships to go to school, or something like that, or do something with the town to
business loans.
Right.
Business loans, helping people start their businesses and just lifting up our fellow people. We're all in this boat together.
Linda, if you would, why don't you tell him he's not on this Zoom call with us, but kind of tell from what you best know about Michael Anthony.
Sure. Michael is getting his PhD in history at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, and he contacted me to get what information I had, and I shared it all with him. and I'd be happy to share it with all of you as well, like it. And he's very interested in getting the recognition that you're talking about, Janice, for this incident that happened, that it needs to be brought out, because it's one of hundreds of similar events, not as violent as some of them, so maybe not getting the attention because of that, perhaps, but it was still violent enough. Absolutely.
It was violent enough that it made people not even feel comfortable to talk about it.
Yes.
And that has a mental, you think of the mental ramification of that, you know, and to be honest, most of those people who lived in that generation, that lived on there, if you were to talk to them about doing something outside of the box, it became a problem because, oh, don't do it because of this and that, you know. We always tease that we got this, I wouldn't say it's negativity, but this be cautious from that side of our family, because they were wanting us to be cautious because they know what had happened in the past.
Absolutely.
And it passed that from generation to generation, and that's the problem.
Look what the ramifications were if you weren't.
Yeah.
You'd lose your life or your livelihood.
Right.
And that's, yeah.
Right.
So I'm glad that we're now reading this out.
Let me add to it. During that time, 1923, there was a group called the Night Riders, and people just assumed that was the Klan. No, it was the Richardsons, the Fergusons, and the Codds. And then, when she mentioned her grandfather, Ernest Richardson, that was my uncle, my father's brother, who was born in Ketcher, Arkansas, June 3rd, 1900. And the people there, he was very proud of himself. He was a painter by trade, and he did all the top homes in Fort Smith, and he had a reputation of being one of the best. That is Janice's uncle. Janice's mother, Alma Sue, is my first cousin.
But this is like I said, these men were, you know, it's always been a set up group of people from Ketcher, and let's go back to slavery because this brings up a lot of stuff. Because during slavery, you know, you are not supposed to educate your slaves. The wife, who was last name was Cox, she married a Cox. She came from Alabama or someplace like that. She brought her slaves with her. They were educated. So that you were talking about, when they left right after slavery, they helped start some schools. One of our great uncles on the Cox side started a college in Little Rock, and it was to train people on how to do carpentry, how to do painting, how to do those jobs like electrical work. So you're not, you know, these are, you know, and then on my grandfather, the Ferguson side, my great grandfather, he had a lot of land, and he was a farmer, and he was good at it. Made a good living at it. He had enough money where he could pay someone to marry his daughter. He had enough money where he, you know, was able to help the community with a lot of stuff, the church and everything. So these were not people who were sitting there waiting for someone to give something to them. These were people who were very prosperous, trying to work hard, and believed at that time that the American dream was going to happen for them. You know, some of them were born into slavery. Some of them, my great-great aunt, who lived to see that, you know, her brothers and sisters were slaves, you know what I mean? So they were just coming out of slavery, and their whole concept of, oh, I could be part of this American dream was just deferred, you know? It's happening now in us, in some of us, but we still carry that this issue. It stays with all of us. It's just, you know, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Other people in my family feel like we should have gotten paid for it. But for me, I think a statute and letting us recognize that it happened, and having something happen in that community that still is depressed. You go look at it now, it's still depressed there. You know, it's not like a lot of income is coming in there. People are working hard there, but it's not like it's a prosperous area. And I just think it's always been stigmatized. When you have people like when they think of Catcher, all they can think about is his incident. I don't care if they're white or black. And that happened almost 100 years ago. There's something, how do you change that stigma? Now, I know the history's good and to know about what happened, but at the same time, I want to do something where when I go to a reunion in Arkansas and I see Catcher, I can say, hey, my great-grandfather was very prosperous, had a land here. My grandfather went to a men's college and learned how to do all this carpentry work. That's what I want to remember about Catcher. Having a group of individuals that were working very hard to try to make a living for their generations to come, who value college, who value their kids going that next step. That's what I want to see.
And that's what, that's another thing that Michael is working on, is getting some sort of plaque or statue there to do exactly what you're saying. So,
and I want to feel comfortable and have my relatives who live there to feel comfortable to go there when they do it and not feel like they have to be scared. That's how you know the change really occurred. Like I said, I have cousins who live there. They won't even go to that town. It's like, that's a no-no. And it's sad in this day and age. And the funny thing is, most of them are into interracial relationships. And a lot of them are from there. And I'm just like, you don't go there and your children, grandparents live there? I mean, this is crazy. But it's been embedded not to go back. And it's like, I want to go back, but I want to go back and not remember how they destroyed the cemetery or control the church where no one can go to. I want to go back and have memories like, hey, look what they built right after slavery.
Well, okay. It's not publicized. That's what we're working on as the Black Wall Street. We're talking about Greenwood District in Tulsa, who also celebrated their 100-century-old city that was there. And that's in Tulsa. And it got national attention. Also, Janice, remember, maybe Linda too, I think the Bruce family out in L.A., well, they won a suit because the Klan had stole their land. Now, this is not just pertaining to Catcher, Arkansas, Fort Smith, Oklahoma. This happens throughout the United States, especially in the South. But what we want to do is just bring them. We got so many relatives to shame. And a lot of them probably listening today, we wish that they're listening, but this is where Michael Anthony, he has already offered to submit a proposal to write a book. And also is the group supposed to contact on doing a memorial for Catcher. So as soon as they contact me, I'll go and contact Janice Hammond about they want to know the family, this, that, and other. But we have a proud ancestry, and we got so many people that really are enthusiastic. That's just what we're working on as relates to U.M.M.A. But then we can get into what U.M.M.A. is all about. But I'll let Linda and Janice continue. And both of them, we recommended that they become at-large board members for the organization to really get involved. Now, what has happened, Linda? What are you trying to, what's your major objective since that happened on December 28, 1923, when F.E. Latimer was killed?
Well, there's not anyone left who was there at the time, so all we have are stories that were handed down. And I've tried to interview people and get their stories written down. I've been doing that, and I turn those all over to Michael. I've also thought about trying to have Effie's body exhumed to see if there's any evidence at all left. I don't know after 100 years what could be left, but I haven't had answers back. I contacted the Arkansas Department of Crime, the crime laboratory, and they've not gotten back to me, so I'm going to try to find an independent pathologist who might be interested in doing this for me, and I'm going to raise the money to have that done. I wanted to go back for a second, if you don't mind, to your comment about the Night Riders, because that was a really ironic charge against your ancestors, because the Night Riders law came into being because of the Klan, and it was supposed to keep the Klan under control. So when your ancestors put themselves in that log cabin armed to protect their families, and protect their land, and protect themselves, it was very ironic that the law that was used against them was night riding.
Yes.
That just blows my mind. So anyway, my goal, back to the goals, is to find out, if possible, who killed Effie. But mostly I love your goal of wanting to make it a safe place for everyone to go back to. And with that in mind, I'd like to identify which families own which pieces of land, and maybe even have those marked that or have that knowledge out there, so that you can tell.
It is documented. I have a cousin who lives in Little Rock that doesn't have a living, but that land right was during that time, between census and stuff, you can get the land, who owns the land, because
yes, I had those records, and I sent those to Michael too, of who owned land in 1920 and 1943. And what I meant was maybe even put a plaque on each piece of land.
I think that would be nice to do.
Yeah.
And so because some of them, they were paying the taxes up even in the 70s on that land.
Yes. Yeah,
and that's the interesting thing is, some of the relatives to Cogs were still paying taxes. The Phillips Cogs were still paying taxes, and they said they were sending money to a church. They were sending it to the church pastor, and the whole thing just seems a little fishy.
Yes, it does, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. And then the question is, in Arkansas history, is this documented? Is this documented? Because Arkansas does a very good job of the history of Arkansas. So my question is this documented somewhere? We had some more people just join.
Okay, I would like to say I live in Lawrence, Kansas, and so we have known for 200
Identify
years.
yourself, please.
Oh, I'm Terry Wilkie. How are you, MC?
How are you doing?
Well, we had a lynching on the bridge in Lawrence, Kansas, and we did not know where the victims were buried. And so we went through the National Lynching Identification Site and got it registered, and we got a plaque, and there was some plaques. It was in our local newspaper. We're lucky enough to have a local newspaper. I don't know if Catcher is. I don't know if Little Rock picks up Catcher's news. But then, and this is an amazing story, it was the NAACP was doing the work, and there was more than one story, and then all of a sudden, somebody at City Hall in Lawrence, Kansas, found a map of the cemetery with the paupers' graves that identified where these guys were buried. And this was a 200-year-old map, and so the city of Lawrence wants us to believe that, we didn't know where that was. And that makes me think, somebody had that doc, and then when there was talk about it, and they knew they had it, and then they put it in a box in City Hall and said, look what we found. So there is record. We all watch Henry Gates Jr. There's paper trails, and stay strong and go after it. But it's good to have a meeting like this. It's good to write down.
Even working with the Mormons did a very good job of tracking, people, especially the slaves and the descendants of the slaves, that you can go back in their history. They have records of who was living where, so it's there.
And the county has records of who owned land.
Yeah. Let's do this. Allegedly retired Teresa, tell the people what you retired from and what your job description was in Lawrence.
Okay, so I worked for the United States Government Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. I was a civil rights investigator 30 years. I'm retired. How I know
Allegedly.
MC, how I know MC, how I got invited to U.M.A is I volunteer not to worry. I got your names down for Jaws of Justice. So we broadcast 100 miles of the station, which is in Kansas City, Missouri, near the baseball stadium. So that's from Columbia, Missouri to Topeka, Kansas, and north and south correspondingly. But we live stream around the world, and we podcast our shows. They're downloadable, and you can share them, and yada, yada, yada. So I think it's so good that everyone is talking about what they know, and then when you jog other people's memories about what they know, the truth will come out. And good on you.
And MC, we have some other people on the call, like Melba. Do you guys want to give any input? Thank you, Teresa.
Guys, I'm interesting. It's interesting to listen and see how things were like this. Things cold and all.
Now, who is this now?
This is Melba.
Melba Curls.
Is this the first U.M.A. board secretary?
I wasn't that old. I was just a baby.
That's some history there.
Melba was also a state rep for Kansas City, and she is a good person. I'll tell her that so everybody can hear, okay?
So are you part of the legacy of the Curls family that been state representatives in Missouri?
Yes.
Boy, you know she is.
Curls really related. My husband was a state senator, and my niece Kiki Curls was a senator, and some of us passed on.
And what about Ruby? What about you and Scott? You guys want to say anything? I don't want us to just like take over the whole conversation.
About what we're talking
So
about.
we'll get into the U.M.A. deal pretty soon.
I'm not going to be able to stay much longer. I got another meeting. This is interesting.
Well, you know.
Let me know.
Okay.
I think it's really interesting, and I'm in here to see feedback and some feedback. Let me go into the room. I think it's really interesting about the history of you guys' family, but also, and it really gives me an idea of what I need to do about mine, because my great-grandmother, is in Texarkana, Arkansas, and from what I know, there was a big battle over that land. But I also know, too, that she got a lot of respect from, pardon my French, white people. And they called her Miss Tyson and not Francis. And so I need to get into that. But this is really a conversation that needs to be had. And it's really sad. I was looking at something else the other day where there was like a lynching here in Kansas City on a court, a clip or something. And then come to find out the guy didn't do it looking here after the fact. I mean, and that's really sad that people have that much hate in their heart.
That was recently? Was that recently?
No. That happened like a long time ago.
Okay.
I was just doing some research, and I ran across it. I'm doing research on our neighborhood associations here in Kansas City, and that's just one of the things that I came across.
Okay.
Do we have anybody else on the line with us?
Scott.
Well, Speaker, I was going to tell you that we hope that this is a beginning that we will get some really positive results and be a win-win situation for all. But the United Minority Media Association, I might have stated this earlier, was founded May 11, 1974, as well as incorporated in the state of Missouri, August 28, 1974. That's why we're observing, and this is our 47th anniversary. And we're a membership organization. We're also Missouri sales tax exempt. And anyone calling, anybody who received a loan, and this is new to me, how to make this operate. That's why we hired all these experts as volunteers. Did you hear that? Volunteers to really enhance us. But anybody, the person that sent out this email, at least Martini, she can receive this, and we are collecting our membership dues. Now, as far as the Treasury report. She is celebrating her birthday, and it's incomplete. And we got 4 projects scheduled. We've been doing this for quite some time. We used to be affiliated with the National Black Media Coalition out of Spring, out of Washington, D.C. But we are the senior minority media advocacy group in the nation. One of the faults is my fault. We really haven't publicized our organization like we really should. That's what we're working on now. That's why we're recruiting members, social media. We deal with components. But we also have, this year we have 2 events coming up. One is the U.M.M.A 2021 Hall of Fame. We got 10 recipients. Then we're going to have, that's supposed to occur August 22nd. I'm sorry, I'm behind my time. October the 22nd, that's on a Friday. And then we'll have meet and greet media personalities and talent. And hopefully that'll be the middle of November. And we got people who've been involved with our organization for years, such as the person we asked to coordinate that, Ms. Marla Zerka. She's also running, I would say, about 6 radio stations, 4 in Kansas City and 2 up in Pennsylvania. And also they got a triathlon that's similar to the Kansas City pitch. And we got a young lady by the name of Giant Hubbard. She's our youth coordinator, and we're really waiting to get our person to take over that youth program because Carol Ladd was the one that started the first MAMA, we call it, Minority Youth Major in the city, but not limited to get her to work on it, and plus a lot of other people. And like one of our members, we got a lot of members who have departed that we sadly missed, like our former treasurer, and that was Rosa James. And she's well known, Black Agenda, charter member, U.M.M.A, NAACP, and you name it. But we're involved in a lot of things, and we cover 27 states in the Midwest Southeast region, but not limited to. And we're trying to get people to come with us. Now, we have established ongoing working relationship and partnership with people in the Broadcast Association, various ones, the Press Association, educational institutions that are part of this, and we also have our own media credentials where our people, a lot of them head up or produce their own radio show, such as the one that I'm very proud of, Guess Who's Coming to Kansas City, which will air today from 5 to 6 Central Standard Time. And I got that from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. You got it copyrighted, got a trademark, and also we're open to everybody. And it's on Purpose USA, HotTalkRadio.com, and it's also on the YouTube, and it's on Facebook, and it has on there on the website. Which, speaking of websites, U.M.M.A is establishing a website, and it will be called, the name of it will be U.M.M.A.website. When we first started this organization, it looked like we was the only ball game in town, and everybody picked up our acronym of U.M.M.A. So that's what's available to us. But we need to have more input from people, and we're open. We're open to a lot of people. Just like one of the persons that really helped us, she took on U.M.M.A as her minority station, and I feel kind of sad because her name was Suzanne Seymour. At that time, she was KCK, and they used to be up on 41st and State Line of Minnesota, and we lost her in an unfortunate accident between her car, truck, and her if I think of something, I will say, pardon me, and I will talk. So don't we have somebody else who can continue this? No, I know we don't like no dead air when it comes to radio and TV. I know someone has something to say.
I could say one more thing. What really fired me up about this was when I tracked down the son of Robert Latimer, who was my Aunt Debbie's father. And he remarried and had 3 children. And he died in the 1960s, I think, the senior Robert Latimer. And I tracked down Bob Latimer, his son. And the first thing he said to me was, you know, I always thought my dad had something to do with her death. And that just, and then when I repeated that back to him, he said, well, no, I guess he couldn't have. He said he was gone. So that really fired me up to find out just exactly what happened here and how it was used against the people of that community. And my family, even though it was their aunt who was murdered, still helped the people of that community. Now, they lived in that community with them. And my great-grandfather even lived down the street after the murder from Henry Clay's family and had a good relationship with them. So it's coming from somewhere else. It's not coming from the people who were on the ground at that time. That points out what we were talking about before, that someone saw the opportunity for making a lot of money on this and getting this land away from the people. That's all.
Okay, who's up next?
Well, I can chime in real quick. This week, we are going to have a membership drive for U.M.M.A, and I can keep everybody posted to that I'm working with Phyllis Harris to help get this all together. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Well, we don't have to wait till spring. We're recruiting now. And if they want to reach me, all they have to do is go to 816-822-8866. And then my mobile number is 816-694-2273. But we got a lot of things going in our different states that we work with. I know Lincoln University and Jeff City, they're going to become a part of it, like they always participate with us. And our secretary, her name is Elise Martini, and they really support us, and their corporate advertising or their corporate membership, and they cover all the unions here. Then we have, what is her name now? Her name is Marla Zerkler. I think she lives out in Green Valley, but since she's working back and forth, she got an apartment up in Philadelphia in that area. But she's been with us since she was an intern at KU. She worked under Suzanne Seymour. But that's just some of the people. And we got different people. And we're open. We also need to get more youth involved. Everybody said we need somebody to carry on. We need somebody to do something. So we're open for that. As a matter of fact, we want to get a person to head up that youth component, as well as fundraisers. We need that. And just like our first deal will be in, we projected to be October 22nd. That's the U.M.A 2020 Hall of Fame. And since we do have a couple seconds or two, the people who have been recommended to be inducted is Chuck Moore, M. Richardson, Donna Stewart, Graham Carter, Chris King, Oprah Blankenship, Bob Kendrick, Marla Zerkler, and we probably have 1 or 2 others that, and then we'll have Marla and Zerkler. She will coordinate the personality, the meet and greet. These are people that will say people of color, but open to everybody. for over the Broadcasters Association, the press association, and most of these organizations are located in the capital cities. That's where they can lobby. But we're open to all that, and we also got they had Lord Linda Griffin up in Bozeman, Montana, and also Alex Thomas. He does a radio show here. Of course, Janet down in Texas and Austin, Texas, and Jerica Richardson on the East Coast, and we got some other people that we're really open to get them involved. And not only that, for them to get their kids, we have a lot of people. We done put on a lot of different seminars over the years. Philip Harris, an expert in doing that, and we need for them to pass on to their children to get involved. And like I said, we're the senior minority advocacy group in the nation. We just haven't publicized it like we should. So we all need help in that. And I'm just waiting for somebody to. I know you're not through talking, Janet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you some questions. The U.M.M.A. Hall of Fame reception and the meet and greet, given that it's COVID, is it going to be online?
Well, right now, it's my understanding that that's a good suggestion, that it's going to be held. Well, I've spoken to them over at Bruce Hall, Washington. They've been having different, they say, events over there. And we understand the distance and things like that. But hopefully it'll be safe enough for our people. But that's a good suggestion to be online, but we'd like to see the people visible. And so that'd be the meet and greet. And we'll
but
do
if you
that
have
sometime.
something, you're going to have to do it outside then, because you don't want...
Do it when?
You have to do it outside to avoid anyone getting, the virus.
And that's precisely why we thought about doing the membership drive in the spring because of this virus.
Yeah.
Well, you said do it outside, but has everybody that's on this particular Zoom, have you had your shot?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm trying to get in line for the booster shot.
Yes.
Because,
Okay,
one thing about being in the Midwest, I'm just so surprised here in Texas, people not wearing masks, and don't see the need, and fighting because they don't want their kids to wear masks. It's just unbelievable considering the number of people who are dying every day for this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, to me, it's like they have that wish.
Well, but that brings up another topic. I'm hearing the Lone Star State. People feel that they have their rights, and they have rights to carry guns, and they have rights not to wear masks. And and you try to talk to people like that, and you say, well, why do you get the flu shot? Why do you get your kids all these other shots if you believe that these things are not safe? And at this point, I don't think this is going to go away. But for the next couple of years, we have to think out of the box when it comes to fundraising, meet and greet, because it's difficult to feel comfortable going someplace talking to people now, and you have a crowd when no one can actually tell you.
Why do they go to the hospital when they get the COVID? You didn't want to get the shot, so why are you going to the hospital?
Right.
I'm just saying.
I just think if the insurance companies start charging more money for people who didn't get vaccinated and have them pay extra money for a premium, that will stop this from happening. Because when it comes to paying $300 extra a month for your insurance, everybody's going to be getting their shot.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
Hey, Janice, Monday, folks, you know, Friday is the joy program. I'm fulfilling them.
Oh, okay.
Our folks. I'm not just sure. I'll go on and take questions about why did people want to get vaccine and we from around but I feel like people that not only does it take you know,
Would you identify yourself, sir?
That's our,
You got
it's our.
Don't sound like it.
We couldn't understand. He was being cut through. We couldn't really understand him. Our, can you say the question again? Because when you were coming across, it was kind of garbled. Yes, now it's better.
Okay, I was saying, I did know about an hour more ago, and we were discussing why people do not want to vaccine, and different reasons. But they're in the country not to vaccine. They'll put red on clean dangerous for older people, members, people, especially children now, because people wear hats. They had two man to quick and a weeks ago. They're all in the technology. They'll say that they have any vaccines. Other people would have been on this. So they're on a testimonial, okay? And this husband was back to yeah, no excuse. Now you to me.
Okay, we couldn't understand everything you're saying, but I'm assuming you were talking about the fact that there's a lot of people who want to get vaccinated and can't get vaccinated. Did I understand you correctly?
You know, top two participants in this.
We can't understand what's coming across. But I'm glad that everybody on this call is vaccinated. We're the wrong people. Hopefully the people in the podcast who are listening, they realize that there's been a lot of studies done on this vaccination before we even had this. You know, they're not starting from 2020 to come up with a solution. And if it can stop you from having your lungs being damaged permanently, you know, people don't talk about these people who are coming out of the hospital who all of a sudden now have to do dialysis all their life or have heart issues. They don't talk about them. They think that, you know, once you go through this, and the people who don't have any symptoms, we don't know what this disease is doing to our body. You know, some people are getting blood clots, and so I didn't have any symptoms. You know, you have young people dying. So I'm hoping that everyone is taking it serious, and especially the people of color. I know we have history of being a little concerned with things being experimented on us that make us a little afraid. But, you know, you're sitting in line next to people who are taking it. And we have, like, leaders like Reverend Jackson and his wife, who's on ICU, who are dying, you know, even though they took the shots. Imagine if they didn't do anything. They probably wouldn't even, you know, have the chance. And that's why when we do stuff now in crowd, you know, even going out to eat, going to Walmart, try to go at times when people are not there. You know, try to limit yourself, because we don't know. All we do know is that we still have people after 2000, you know, since 2019 when it first hit us in October, that we still have people dying. You know, with or without the vaccination. But I'm telling you, I'm glad I have the vaccination, because I have some of a chance than no chance at all.
Do we have any legal people or advisors, attorneys, and that can answer some questions or provide us some valuable information that are part of this Zoom meeting? The information is
well,
information.
one of the podcasts that you did for guests who's, you know, coming to, you know, your weekly podcast, you had a lot of people that were on the phone talking about it. I think it was done in the month of July, where you spoke about the virus. And right now, the best place to go is just go to the government sites and get the information. The information's out there. The commercials are out there. You can go to CVS, you can go to Walgreens, you can go to Costco. Everything is there. It's no longer saying that excuse that I want to see the evidence. The Pfizer has been FDA approved. There's no other excuse at this point. It's just that if you don't want to do it, fine, don't take it. But don't come to the emergency trying to take a bed that's preventing people who may be having a heart attack from getting service because you're sick. And if you want to take that risk, then, you know, look at car insurance. We people who have terrible records, we make them pay more. And, you know, start making people pay more, because eventually this debt that we're creating, all this money we're getting for free, our kids are going to be paying for this for a very long time. And no one seems to care that the ramification of these kids who don't get pension, who may or may not have the Social Security, who have a bundle 401k that can go up and down a day, how they're going to live. We're making it worse for the next generations to come. And that's the sad thing about it. And something simple, taking a test so we can, you know, stop quarantining people and get back to work. People don't want to do that, you know, and they're not really realizing the impact to other people. It's scary. It's extremely scary.
Okay, that's some good medical communication and what people say. But what's happening today in D.C.? How important is it for voting? How important is the John Lewis Voting Act? How many people can risk? Because a lot of us, and religion doesn't have anything to do with it. A lot of people say they don't vote, and it could be, I have all kind of academia, and said the Lord will take care of them. They just don't want to vote. Anybody comment on that?
Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote. They think it's against their religion, which is kind of, you know, that's what you know, I have to respect that. I'll just put it this way. The state of California, the governor, who's a Democrat, is being attacked because of some of the things he did to try to protect the people in California from getting sick, and had to make hard decisions. He's running, I mean, he was a landslide when he came in. He may not be the governor in another 2 weeks, and some person who had no background in any of this is going to end up being the governor. And this is what America's come to. Someone's trying to help you, and we want to knock them out of business, you know, knock them out. You know, is this the new America? We all should be worried. We all should be worried about anything they're doing. You know, they're still talking about voting cheating and all that. I think people forget that in the middle of the election, we were in the middle of a coronavirus. It was the safe thing to do to mail it in. Can you imagine all those people standing out there next to each other? How many more sick people we would have had here? You know, so yes, we all should be worried. We all should be worried that senior citizens who can't stand up, or senior citizens who's in a wheelchair, who may not want to go vote again because they can't stand in line for a long period of time. You just knocked out a whole generation of people that aren't able to vote anymore. Yeah, you know, so we should be worried. We should be worried when we sit here and, you know, we're all sitting here and people can come out there and say, well, I don't want to wear a mask, and because you want me to wear a mask, you got to get kicked out. Imagine if we get someone in there to say, well, I don't want to deal with black people. You know, it's that easy to happen. The way that we have become, and our ranking in the world, you know, people are saying, oh, you know, look what's happening over in Afghanistan. The United States is not like they used to be. But we're not. We're not like we used to be. And maybe we shouldn't have been how we were, you know. It's just, I don't know. This is the most scariest time I can think of in my life. You know, because you get people who are trying to take over, and they're trying to dictate their life, what they want, and they're not taking everyone else in consideration. What happened to the, you know, thinking about how is this person in a wheelchair is going to be able to vote with all these changes? It doesn't impact trying to do the Democrat versus the Republican. It impacts people who really need to speak their mind and make sure that things are in place for them that work in the 9 to 5, you know, the hourly workers. Those are the ones who are going to be impacted, not the ones who have white collar jobs that can go down the street and get away for a few hours and stand in line. Those are the people who are going to be impacted. So we're going to become like other countries where we have our super rich and our super poor, and that's where we're headed. And maybe that's where most of the people want us to be. So maybe I'm talking too much. I'm looking at you, Linda. I'm talking too much.
No, you're not talking too much as far as I'm concerned. I want you to run for president. Because everything you're saying is everything I'm thinking, and I'm living in Montana, which is very much like Texas, in that we have a Republican legislature right now who are putting in ridiculous laws, and lies, and it's just making court case after court case after court case after people need to file against these new laws in order to keep our freedoms and to keep and to do exactly what you were saying, to keep the people who can't get to the polls. For us, it's the Native Americans. They don't have the capacity to get to the polls that like you said, the white collar worker down the street does. And all of the laws that are going into place here are making it difficult for them.
And that's what we, so, and it's sad because
You're ours.
we can hear you, guys, but it's just sad that this is where we are as a country.
Yes.
It's just, and all spend around someone thinking that the voting was unfair. There was a lot of cheating going around. But I'd like to go back 8 years ago, because when Donald Trump came in, I was like, there's no way he should have won. He had to cheat.
Exactly. Exactly.
It was no way I would have believed that he won, and it just didn't seem right. And it made it seem like, why do we have the Electoral College? Because clearly Hillary Clinton won based on the votes, the number of votes. But she didn't win. It's like, how is that possible?
I agree with you on that. The reason I do, there was evidence that there was some collusion or whatever you call it with Russia. So, and I'm still trying to figure it out. Because he shouldn't have won.
So it's hard to come to terms when people are thinking this is okay. It's the saddest day with me was January the 6th. It would stay with me forever to see how they behave and how one person can get people to start a riot. You see how quickly something can happen. One person agitating something that made people go to the point where they did. To me, if a president doesn't show up when the next president's being sworn in, they should never be able to be a president again. Look at the ramification of all this. Look at the ramification. Donald Trump got upset that he didn't win the presidency. It was 5,000 army people in Afghanistan. He knocked it down to 2,500. There was no transition of what was going on, what was said, or anything. And
he also said he didn't have an exit strategy.
Right.
He didn't need one.
He didn't need one. And so he put an incoming administration at risk of, you couldn't bring any more people in there. Could it have been done better? When you're sitting down looking at it now, probably could have. But when you're right at the heat of this, and you're trying to get the intelligence and stuff, and you're trying to figure out how to get that many people out, I think they did pretty good. 100,000 people out that quick. That's unheard of. But at the same time, you have people get killed over this. But there's no blood. There's no reason, because all we're talking about is Democrat versus Republicans, and it's sad. I don't think it's going to get any better. That's the sad thing about it, and that's why when I talked to my friend in Singapore and she reads some of the cartoons that the Chinese people put out there about our United States, it's like, wow, what can you do about it? Not a darn thing. So it's because we put ourselves in that position. We're the one that told the world that our CIA and FBI wasn't great. We're the ones who decided befriend people who were known to be murderers and kill people. We were known that, you know, we gave arms to a country where one of the prince killed an American and nobody's up an arm about it. You know, what if that American was a white male? Would we have gone to war? Would we have stopped it? You know, it's crazy. And this is, and the thing about it is, our young kids, they are so not in touch on what is going on. It doesn't phase them yet. And when it does phase them, they're going to be mad as crap. When they realize that these incentives that we're giving people to live off on, how impact that's going to have on them in generations to come. When they realize that, you know, we're so divided that we haven't done anything. You know, I remember I went to Malaysia, and the first thing I said, man, these highways are better than the United States. No potholes, you know. You know, maybe if you go to the East Coast, you'll know what I'm talking about. The infrastructure is terrible, you know. But
so I think that you need to educate your own children. You know what I'm saying? They don't seem to be educated in school, so if they don't know, they don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's my brain. I talk to people about everything. You know, I'm conversation. So right now,
But we can barely hear you because you're moving. But I would say this to what you're saying. It's nice to educate people, and just like, you know, in our generation, our parents didn't really want to talk about segregation because they didn't want to put that negativity out to make us not feel comfortable. But you have to do it in a way that a child doesn't walk up and say, "Well, I give up." Why, you know, because it's easy now to do that. You got kids, you know, committing suicide over stuff that happened in high school. So it has to be a balance of how this stuff is being presented, so that you don't drain the kids to think, you know, everything is gloom and doom. Because that's also, you know, it gets in people's DNA, and that's another issue. If you really think about it, you know, people are not talking about, you know, how the impact of some of these things, social things, are having on people, especially on certain races. You know, can you imagine as Native Americans what they've gone through? You know, can you imagine why they seem to be like not really going anywhere but staying on that reservation? They went through so much, you know, and although I think there's a lot of history and Black history in the United States that hasn't been told, the untold stories is the Native Americans. And not only here, but in Canada and Australia and every other place that they have gone and basically killed them all. You know, that would be a story to tell.
Many stories to tell. Many stories to tell. And I think to kind of echo what you said, I think that adding hope and getting examples of reasons why young people can hope. And that's like using Dr. Martin Luther King, and those types of movements can bring hope. And I see that at kind of a grassroots level right now. I see groups getting together to try to bring hope to people. And I think if we promote that, along with telling the truth of what happened and how we could do better in the future, I think maybe that will help us get back to where we can be proud of our country again.
Yes.
well, speaking of that, you know, what do they say? Cancel culture? They don't want us to know about our history.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying is, so we're having an issue right now about what they're going to teach in school about color. So they're afraid of our children knowing the truth or the history of this country. It's not a big thing. And so they're trying to erase it and whitewash it. And I have a problem with that.
Well, everybody should have a problem with that. The mere fact that they said Christopher Columbus discovered something where the Scandinavians and Native Americans been here all this time, and then we grew up in school thinking he discovered America, and America was here before for thousands of years for people there. It's so much. It's sad when someone tell you when you're a kid, because I was in school, oh, the slaves were happy. They got to tell how our skin became so light, and how the Puerto Ricans and the South Americans, how they got light, and how we were raped, how we were, beaten, how we were scored. They don't talk about that. We do when it comes to the Romans. The Roman history is honest. They talk about what they did. Good, bad, or whatever.
Okay, all our people who's on this Zoom program, once again, we've got about a minute and a half left for this first one, and we'll be doing this quarterly. And what would be a good time and what would be a good day? It seems like on the weekend is the best time for us to do this, or if we got the station, whatever that we do the Zoom on, it will work better. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think this time is good for me. I don't know.
I'm retired, so it doesn't matter to me.
Well, we appreciate all your attention and everything. As we got another show on the internet that's going to come on from 5 to 6 p.m. this evening, and the topic is Dallas's and Wales connection. It should be a great show with our youth person who told me that she wasn't under 25. No, she said she was. She's 21 now, and that's Miss Cheyenne Hubbard. So we want to thank everybody for listening. Remember, you don't have to go online to send those checks in there for your membership, and give us a call, and we need it because hopefully we'll have our website up, and the other thing, we'll have the computer fixed, and we'll have this headquarters here, and the people really saying they want to work with us, but we need your participation. And appreciate everyone who was part of this, and we wish you luck, and go Chiefs again, and go Royals, and go U.M.A. We'll do our 48th next year. Thank you very much for zooming in.